Hi, my name is Kristen Foster, and I have my master's degree in music education with an emphasis in Kodaly. And I'm also a string teacher. I teach fifth through eighth grade, and fifth grade being our beginning string grade within our district. And so I wanted to show you how this year I am applying um, or adapting the Kodaly philosophy or way of approach to my string teaching. Okay, so here's my email address down here. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions, or if you would just like to make sure you get updates on the videos I'm sending out as I teach through my school year and I teach through the sequencing that I'm going to show you today. The note name sequence that I'm going to be using this year is, I will be starting with D, E, and F sharp. There's two worlds of thought in the Kodaly approach and philosophy, which is beginning so mi and beginning do, re, mi. And I am going to start do, re, mi because it fits better on stringed instruments. So mi just doesn't lay out well on the fingerboard, and using those the fingers that you'd have to introduce first. So I'm going to start with do, re, mi, which will work really well for the programs that start in third grade, because in third grade typically is when do, re, mi is introduced in the general music classrooms, and so that would be a good correlation there. For me, starting in fifth grade, it's okay. I'm still going to start do, re, mi, D, E, F sharp, and then I'm going to move from there to A. And I'm going to move to A because A functions as so in the key of D. And I don't want to go to G next, even though a lot of traditional method books for the string world go to G to complete using all the main fingers that we use on our instrument, for a few main reasons. One, in the Kodaly philosophy or approach, we like to introduce one concept at a time, and we like to follow folk literature that the kids can sing and play and interact with. And so oftentimes those songs are pentatonic, and then they introduce the full diatonic scale in that order. And so it'd be hard to find something that has fa but doesn't contain so. Not saying it doesn't exist, it's just harder to find. And so I'm going to go to A, which is an open string, and it'll work really well that way. Also, the note G on the cello uses all four fingers. Cellos have to stretch their fingers quite a bit. Might give them a few moments longer to work on just honing in open 1 and 3 first before they are then asked to stretch their pinky all the way out to the fourth tape, if you use tapes on your instruments, which I'm assuming most people do. The next note I'm going to introduce is B, which functions as la. That'll be a nice intuitive approach. It rounds out the pentatonic scale without including high do. Then I'm going to introduce G next, which does function as fa. And I'm going to do that so we can go ahead and start learning third finger for violins and violas, fourth fingers for cellos. And I should let you know that I don't start the bass in my beginning string program, so I'm not concerning myself with those right now. My basses start in the second year program. I will then go on to high D, which on the A string, and some people might be looking and going, why not C sharp first? That would make more sense, since you already know how to play F sharp, the fingering would be the same. And the reason for that is because C sharp functions as T, and it's hard to find a song that has T but doesn't have the high do in it. And so I'm going to introduce high do first, and then I'm going to come back to T, which would be C sharp in this. And then next I'm going to take a break from maybe what is more traditional Kodaly approach, and that would be going to like low la or low so. I know some people even do that before T and fa, but for me that would force us onto another string, and so I don't want to do that yet. So I'm going to go to F natural next, which is, it works well because if you change D to minor, then F natural fits well with that lowered scale degree. And so in, especially if you use La bass minor, your D would be La. That works out really well. And then C natural functions well with La pentatonic. And so you can go over and hop and get both those. You can also teach key signatures and such at that time. Following that, then I'm going to go down to B on string G. And I'm going to first introduce it as So Me. And I'm going to go back to some of those basic songs that just only use So Me and practice going from D to B and getting that lower string switch in there. And then I'll introduce La, as the low La to a D major tonality. Then next I'll introduce A on the G string, which will function as low So. And then I'm going to go to open G. And I'm going to go to open G next as a, so then we can shift the tonality to G Do as G equals Do. I can't introduce T or low T because that'd be C sharp in the key of D, and that's just you're doing extensions and it's just higher level string playing. And so open G makes more sense, and then to teach C as Fa in the key of G. So that's the note name sequencing I'm going to use. The rhythmic sequencing, I'm going to start with Ta, Ti, Ti, or quarter note, beamed eighth notes, however, whatever counting method you use. Half note, quarter rest. I'll probably do half note after the quarter rest. Most of my students already know those. They've been doing those since first grade. And so by the time they get to me, those are really intuitive, just to introduce how they feel and how they sound coming out of stringed instruments. It'll give us a good start with that. Then I'm going to go to 16th notes next. 16th notes are usually quite an easy thing to accomplish on a stringed instruments. The Suzuki approach starts with 16th notes. You don't have to use that much of a bow stroke. Can get a nice clear sound. Students would be able to count it pretty easily, as opposed to like maybe going to whole note, which is going to use the whole bow and maybe a bit harder to maintain a proper bow stroke there. Then I'll go down to paired 8th with 16th notes, and then 16th, 8th notes. Kind of for the same reason, they're maybe more manageable on a stringed instrument as opposed to going to something a bit longer. And then I'll go down to our syncopated rhythm of syncopa or ti-ta-ti or whatever your method of counting that is. And I'm going to introduce that because it's quite heavy in the literature that I want to use, and so I want my kids to know it. Other sequences I'm going to do with the first year, I'm going to make sure to introduce 2/4 meter first, and then 4/4 and 3/4 meter. And then the harmony sequencing I'm going to use is unison. And then I'm going to have students learn how to play with ostinato. And then I'm going to have students learn how to play with freeze tones. And those of you who maybe don't have any choral background, freeze tones are often used in children's literature for singing, for choral music. And it's when your main melody is going along and then a student just stops and they on their part, they just hold the note that they're on and then they continue on with the song. And that it's really quite an easy next step after an ostinato before you go to a full-blown round. And then after that, I'll do rounds and then partner songs and then canonic entrances and then thirds and more. And I found in years past, not sequencing harmony like this is really hard for students to jump from unison to just thirds and more. And so I'm really excited to use this to help step them into the process of harmony and how it sounds, and maybe to help set them up to be more successful. So I hope that this was helpful for you. Again, feel free to contact me. There's my email if you have any questions or if you'd like to be put on a mailing list. to let me, so I can know when to send you things that I have coming out. And I look forward to helping you more in the future.